And I was like, for every $100 that we raise, I'll throw a free show. And we raised like way more money than I thought. And so I was like, oh shit, now, now I'm gonna have to do these free shows like the next like 2 years.
Good to go if you are.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much everyone for tuning in. There's another episode of the Scoped Exposure podcast. Today we traveled down to Oklahoma to talk with Aaron, who runs PROMCORE. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today, man.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course. This has been something I think it was a very serendipitous timing because I had one spot that opened up just before we hit our 100th episode, and Aaron is expecting a new human in the world just in a matter of weeks here. So congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks from today.
Yeah, it was. I was thinking before we were get going, I was like, I don't know if it's gonna be like, hey, we gotta go. Obviously, that's gonna trump anything on this podcast. But I'm glad that you are making some time for me, and potentially when this comes out, you might have your little one. So that's very exciting. For the few folks at home who might not know who you are, can you give me a proper introduction, your name, where you're based, and how you're known in hardcore?
Yeah, so my name's Aaron Johnson. I'm based out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I organize a 2-day festival called PROMCORE every year. And then I also, with the help of some other people in the scene here, run a small all-ages venue called Mass Movement Community Arts.
Awesome. Yeah, we're definitely going to be talking about both of those. There's some things with mass movements currently that are very timely that we should talk about, but I think PROMCORE as a whole should be highlighted a lot more just as far as what you guys are doing, the bands that you guys are featuring, and how you guys are kind of breaking kind of through a lot of the noise that is just, hardcore oversaturation overall. Before we get super into the conversation, we got to do our bev check for the episode. So tell me what you're sipping on, and then I got something here prepared for you. So let me know what you got.
My wife and I just bought this really fancy coffee maker, and so I drink coffee like all day, every day. So decaf at night, just because I just like having coffee. So yeah, just coffee, little cream and honey, nothing special. But then because I know you do this, we have a grocery store here called Aldi. I don't know if you guys have that there.
Don't have that, but I'm intrigued. So
yeah, but it's called Aldi, and it's like I want to say it's European, like, but they franchise like into the States, and so they have basically like European versions of every like major like thing. So like any cereal that you get, like they have one that looks just like it, but it's just called something slightly different.
Sure.
But they do like it's almost all of it is like way healthier for you. So but they have this particular brand of sparkling water called Belvi or something like that.
Oh,
but this
okay.
grapefruit is fucking delicious. So.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Is the branding like similar? Like is it on the nose? Okay, because I always you go.
It's pretty close. Like so my wife loves mac and cheese. Like it's just a thing that she really enjoys. And so they have like the Kraft one, like looks exactly like it. And I mean, it's just really interesting that they have this kind of, mirror image of branding, but it's all like European brands. So.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. That gets into a huge conversation just about like parody versus just outright copying, and but maybe it's so under the radar that Katie and some of these bigger companies don't even know about it.
Yeah, I'm sure how we love it.
Yeah, no. So a huge goal of mine for kind of season 2 of the podcast is getting bev sponsors, and I'm noticing the more that I delve into like doing shout outs of these companies, maybe there's a higher rate that they'll like listen to this portion of the episode or things like that. So I actually had this fun idea. So I have 3 bevs, all from the same brand. I'm going to let you choose what I'm going to drink on this episode. So the brand is called Aha. It's my favorite sparkling water. So we got There's only 3 flavors available here in Canada, at least right now. So I got a lime watermelon, a peach honey. Where's the get off the French side? And then a blueberry pomegranate. So let me hold these up, and then you can, by your judgment, I will check whatever you choose.
Yeah, I would have to go blueberry pomegranate for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Out of
can't.
these.
I can't do watermelon on anything.
Yeah, that's fair. I've had people on this show who are like diehard watermelon fans. Anything goes, but the blueberry pomegranate is good. I actually, when I was getting these 2 were in the fridge, and this one was just in the pantry because I didn't have space. So I was like, I hope he checks one that I have refrigerated and it's colder. But yeah, the blueberry pomegranate is definitely a go-to. Aaron, the kind of intro question that I ask all my guests just to get context around how they got into heavier music and, being obsessed with breakdowns and whatnot is, how'd you get into hardcore? Tell me some of the formative records and moments for you growing up. And yeah, we'll start there.
Yeah. I man, I'm old, so I'm almost 40, or I am 40 actually, just turned 40. But I got into it probably around 99 is when I graduated high school, and I grew up in a really small town called Pryor, which is like 45 minutes outside of Tulsa. So Tulsa's not a huge city, but Pryor is like a tiny little town. And had kind of started leaving in high school and going to Tulsa and just like going to punk shows and stuff like that. Like just pop punk shows and things of that nature. And I played bass, and a guy I knew named Joel said, "Oh, we have a hardcore band. We're looking for a bass player." And I was like, "I don't know what that means, but yeah, whatever." So like I show up and I was like, "What do you guys sound like?" And he was like, "Have you ever heard of Zayo?" And I was like, "No, I have no idea what that is." And so we went and listened to it in the car, and it just fucking blew my mind. Like, and it was Blood and Fire Bring Rest. That was the record, the first time I ever heard anything like that. And it was like the most amazing and terrifying thing I'd ever heard in my life. And still to this day, I think that record kind of stands up as like a really strong, like metalcore offering.
Sure,
You know,
yeah.
yeah. And so I started playing bass in that band, and then just kind of through that, like, back then there was no, like, there wasn't really a scene here. Like there was a lot of punk shows and stuff that happened in like these, kind of crust basements here. There's a band called Brother Inferior from Tulsa that was pretty big in like the punk scene in like the 90s. And so, we play a lot of shows where we kind of we didn't really have any business being on the show. We definitely
Sure,
didn't.
yeah.
That. But then, over time, just, kind of getting more kids into it and stuff, and then started like bringing bands through, early 2000s was like it was a strong time for hardcore. I feel like everybody was touring. And so like you got, massive bands that came through and would play pretty small rooms, at the time, because they'd be passing through here to go to like California or to the other coasts or something like that.
Sure.
So that was kind of my introduction to it. But I was like really into like, punk and stuff when I was in high school. But yeah, hearing that Zayo record for the first time just blew my mind. And, so,
It's pretty interesting just to hear on like I think the timing of a lot of things where it wasn't as like there wasn't the surplus of things that was constantly having your attention. You're like, yeah, I'll go to my friend's house and jam, and then you're like, I don't know this band. We'll just go to the car. Like, not nowadays, it's like, oh, like, where are your demos? Let me listen to it and critically
yeah.
think about it. So, I
Yeah.
think the timing of all those things obviously was very important for you to be like, to hear it and put you on that path. So that's very cool.
Yeah. And then just, like, and you get exposed to more stuff. So like, I don't know, I don't consider myself like I don't even know what it is, like a purist hardcore kid that like you have to be like ingrained with like New York hardcore and stuff like that. It's just stuff. If I like it, I like it. And if I don't, then that's fine. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. I don't know like what it means to be hardcore really. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's really cool to hear because I think a lot of people in I think we're just over 10 years apart in age, but I think that there is this like thing when you're getting into hardcore and you don't have that traditional like oh, I listened to Earth Crisis and Youth of Today. It's like a lot of people, even my age and younger, are just discovering that, but they came through the Rise Records route, or the
Right.
MySpace metalcore, or what have you. So I don't think that there's one defined path. So that's very
Yeah.
cool
That's
to
a really
hear.
cool thing about this like kind of subculture is that there's so many kind of avenues that you can go
Sure.
into it, still be involved in it, not be like, I don't know, like you don't have to be an expert on everything to kind of be involved. And I think that's how it should be. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like I don't like that gatekeeping shit. Like that's weird.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Definitely. Um, you were mentioning just like back in the day, a lot of bands were touring a lot more, and that's been a theme or something that's been talked about on the podcast before. I remember Isaac of Knock Loose has been like, man, bands don't tour anymore, and
yeah,
back when he was starting that band, it was just like tour all the time. And even though that band is very established now, they would be touring as much this year as ever before. So
we we
just
had a
talking
we had a
about, oh,
oh sorry.
sorry. I was I was just gonna say, on the geographical sense, like if someone's tuning in, they're from like Eastern Canada or somewhere in the world where they're like, I don't know where Oklahoma is. Can you just like give some context for those folks where
I mean
how
it yeah,
isolated that is compared to some other parts of the world?
I mean it's like smack dab in the middle of the country pretty much. Like I would say maybe Kansas right above us is like actually the middle, but I mean it's right in the center and right above Texas. Like it's pretty much there's no reason for anybody to come here unless they're going from one place to the other. So
Sure.
but it's a cool city. Tulsa's awesome. Like we got a lot of cool stuff here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I do. Please correct me if you don't have as much involvement with this, but I know there was a fest, and I knew this through the Swing Low guys and Stepping Stone, in Oklahoma for before prom code, called Flyover Fest.
yeah. So Dustin, who runs the Vanguard, he was in Peace of Mind,
Right.
put on Flyover Fest for 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not sure if the name of that was just on that nature of like just being in the middle of the country and being like, yep, like
Yeah.
people
It's a
will lay
flyover.
over here.
Yeah. That's what it is. Oklahoma is considered a flyover state. Nobody stops here for any reason. So
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's a great transition. Obviously, like Promcore came onto my radar just a couple of years ago, and it was through the sets that Sonny was filming, and I definitely want to talk about, I guess, like the before and after, as far as having a bigger archivist or someone who films shows on a regular basis come through, because I was doing the research for this podcast, and there are sets that have been documented. I don't know essentially who by, but I think it was Promcore 2018, and then the first time Sunny
yeah.
came was 19. So just to give the proper context of everything around the festival, just tell me on how it came to be and why you felt the need to start that.
Yeah, well, so what's funny is that so the first prom corps actually happened in the year 2000.
Oh,
uh,
okay.
yeah, so it was like a staple local thing for like 10 years. My friend Diana Crawford, she put it on first, and it was like six bands. Um, a band called Saved by Grace from Kansas City, Missouri, headlined. One of those dudes is in like Hopesfall,
Oh,
kind
okay.
of
Yeah.
but and it was kind of a funny. It was just like everybody dressed up like it was prom, and this went on for years. I mean, we had like every year we had it around prom time, and it was everybody dressed up like wore suits. People rented limos to come to it, like, but it was mostly local and regional bands. Like
Sure.
at the time, like Bitter End played it a few times back in its infancy when they were like a smaller band, based out of Texas.
Yep.
Um, the guys from Power Trip, when they were Balls Out, like played it a couple times, you know what I mean? So but it was really like local, regional only. And so that went on for about from like 99 to 2010, I think, was the last time we did it.
Okay.
And then just life happens, and like I stepped away from like being so involved for a while, just to focus on my career and things like that. Like I moved to California for a couple of years, and so um when I, after being back and kind of established myself a bit, I had a little bit of kind of free time to, focus on more fun things. I was talking to Dustin, who runs the Vanguard, who puts on, Flyover Fest. And I was like, I really want to do, I want to bring that back, but I want to do it as a charity event, for this organization called Oklahomans for Equality, which is like a nonprofit organization that does a lot of really great work for the LGBTQ community here.
Cool.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, in 2018 when we brought it back, it was pretty much all locals. It was, that we did some like cool reunion sets from bands that had kind of been around here, and from a couple bands from out of state, but it was mostly local. And it just went so well. Like we were kind of shocked. Like there were like 500 people that came out and like, raised a lot of money for the charity. So it was cool. And then after that, I was like, well, the response was good. So maybe I'll try to do this, a little bit bigger next year. And then I got into like actually, booking bands from all over the country to do it, which is a completely different experience than doing it when it's all local and regional stuff. So
right. Yeah, and I think I've gone to a handful of fests and been able to see the small infancies, like you were saying, where the very first Calgary festival that I went to, it was like all bands in Western Canada and then like one or two like acts from maybe Seattle or somewhere beyond. But for Wild Rose now to like have as big a year as they would have with Knocked Loose and Madball and Never Ending Game, like that's crazy for me to see, where it's like I was just hyped to see my friends in Stepping Stone come play Regina, versus like I get to see this band all in this same weekend. That's insane. So once the success of like the 2018 festival went, what was the decision for you to be like, I'm going to bring out someone like Sonny who has an audience to not only just give the fest a little bit of like light to the larger hardcore community, but also like the actual like regional bands that are playing that?
Yeah, it actually, Cold Shoulder came through and on tour and played, and I got to talking to them because they stayed at my house. They stay at my house every time they come because it's like, I think it's like a chill place where there's not a lot of partying going on. We can just they can have
that sounds like Cold Shoulder to a T. Just like I just want an 8-hour sleep. Like
and so and they said that because they brought him out for that thing that they did up in Toronto.
Yeah, Toys for Tots.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, was it easy? Because I don't know the guy. And they were like, he was so nice and just so simple to approach. So I just shot him a message on Facebook and he was like all about it. Like there was no hesitation at all. He was all about it as long as we could get him out here. And, so yeah, so we brought him out, and I thought it was important to do just because I think where our fest does like a really cool thing is like, it's cool to have like those headliners. But I think we bring in a lot of really cool bands that don't necessarily get put on some of those bigger fests.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Don't really have that opportunity to kind of have, that audience. It was awesome to have like FOM out from Denver or like Crafter. You know what I mean? Like these are bands that I, like I got into and listened to, and I'm like, oh, these are sick. Like I'd love for them to have like, not that it's like my place to put them on or anything, but like, for them to get their set filmed, or even just the local bands like having Giveaway and stuff like that. So
yeah, I think it's so crucial to like have those. I'm thinking back when I went out for Snow and Flurry Fest. That was kind of like the last festival I went to before this whole thing went down, and like just thinking about that entire weekend, and I think about a lot of the people who were just going off and going crazy for a lot of the bands. It was a lot of people from Oklahoma, lots of the Omen dudes, the people in Giveaway, like people were just, OTM even. So, that kind of connected me to those bands, and then go back in time and be like, oh, I do remember when Sonny posted this Giveaway set, and, do those kind of things. What is that fine line for you where as the fest has grown, you still want to have that like regional focus, for, not even just because I think about like a fest like LDB, and just with Steven filming that, a lot of people will go and watch those videos, and then they do want to go and check out that festival in future years. And, it's a A and B difference as far as like the 2019 festival attendance and the 2020 festival attendance. It's like night and day. So how has that been like weird for you to be like, okay, I want to book these bigger bands and fly them out all the way here, but I also want these people who are going to be coming to a future iteration of the fest to like see bands like Giveaway, see bands like Sledge and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I put a focus on making sure that we're highlighting local and regional stuff. The plan with, the 2020 Fest was that we were going to have, the headliners are obviously going to play last, but I had made the decision I was going to put, Giveaway, Omen, Sledge, those bands right before them. You know what I mean? So because I don't know, like it's a fest for Oklahoma, you know what I mean? And so I wanted to really put shine on to those spots. And unfortunately it wasn't able to happen, but it's one of those cool situations where like, if Giveaway would have been able to play with Division of Mind at like a regular show, likely they would have played, the opening slot whenever the doors were opening, and so I was like, I want to make sure to put, the Tulsa people who support what we do as a fest and the venue that we have and everything, like, I want to, support them back. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, I don't know. I think it probably would have gone over really well. They were super stoked on it. Unfortunately, it wasn't able to happen. So
yeah, I think this might be one of the only times that I've actually had a festival promoter on the podcast. So, well, that's not true. I had Cody of Serration, who also does Wilder West Fest. But we were talking about that kind of when things hit the fan. So, like I'm sure it's different for every different festival booker, but are you trying to, once it's like safe to do so and you're like, okay, like I can probably start to actually make plans, do you think you're going to try to at least get the festival lineup that you had for 2020, like as to that as possible? Obviously there's going to be bands who are like, yo, like we're not playing anymore, things like that. But like, where are your thoughts there?
I mean, well, I'm trying to think. I definitely want to bring Division of Mind out again, just because they've never played here. So getting them on would be great. Culture Abuse is not a band anymore, so that's not going to happen. I don't know what Candy's got going on. So yeah, I mean, I thought I had a really cool kind of diverse, headliner situation. They were definitely bands that have never played in this part of the country, which is super important to me.
Sure.
Yeah. So yes.
You have a guest for the podcast as well?
My 9-year-old wants to know if he can watch YouTube. So
okay.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know, like I think everything's changed so much, and I mean, I don't even know when. I don't think it's gonna happen in 2021. You know what I mean? Like I just don't think it's gonna happen. So much can change between now and then. No, I just, booking a fest like this is interesting because it's a charity event. So like I have to be really upfront with the bands and be like, hey, this is it's a thing that we're doing for charity. We get a lot of local sponsors that help pay for flight and like guarantees and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. I understand.
You know what I mean? So like we get sponsors that, pitch in like 400 here, 500 here, and they get their name on the flyer and they have a booth at the thing. And, this year we had a lot of other sponsors from outside of the state, like Patient Zero Records was a sponsor, and just things like that where they were kind of attaching their name to it, so that way we could make it a bigger thing. So we'll just have to see how it goes whenever everything comes back. But I think the likelihood of getting the same lineup as far as the top end is probably going to be pretty low. But all the other bands that are like regional and like kind of coming Colorado, Texas, like they've all said that they want to play. So as long as they're still a band, then right. Yeah, we'll have them on. So.
Yeah, no, I think most festival, like I would be kind of surprised if someone's like, nope, we're starting completely from scratch and like scratching all, because a lot of those bands, I think the anticipation is still there for, certain people to go check out. I remember when Absence of Mind announced that they were going to play not Snow and Fury, Sound and Fury, and a lot of people were like really excited to see a smaller band like that actually get a huge platform. So I don't think that festival organizers overall will just start from zero. I think that they'll probably get it to 90% and have fill in the blanks.
Yeah. We I'm fortunate, like where it's I didn't think it would kind of blow up like it has, and it's definitely not on that level of like LDB or anything like that. Like I went last year and I was just looking around at the talent that was there, the bands, and I'm like, this is incredible what Ryan was able to pull off with this lineup. I mean, it was just stacked from top to bottom. But it is something I think that I'd like to aspire to get to that point.
Sure.
I also have to be realistic of the fact that we are in Oklahoma, and so it's harder for people to get here. Like, I don't think you're going to see as many people coming from like East Coast, West Coast. You know what I mean? Like, majority of our attendance comes from Texas, Oklahoma, everything surrounding where we're at, and then up north, Minneapolis and stuff like that. We were getting people that were coming down from that. So, it's just I just want to create like something that's a quality festival that's a really fun environment.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I was watching, I think it was the Upright set from 2019, and someone had said someone had traveled from Hawaii.
Yeah, so their guitar player Ryan Stark, he's from here,
Oh, okay.
but he lives in Hawaii, and
Oh,
so it's kind of a joke that they're not an active band by any means, but they're like a Oklahoma hardcore like staple. Like,
sure.
they've been around forever, and it's kind of that's like their one show a year that they play, and everybody just goes off for them. So.
Yeah. Supply and demand for that band is is real. Well, we've talked about just like, that's always the thing where it's like, if places don't have this like, um, oh, it's on this coast or this coast, it's like, oh, well, why would I want to travel there? And like,
Yeah.
Even Calgary, like Wild Rose, like I'm sure that there's a barrier for some people. I'm like, man, like Calgary is 45 minutes away from the mountains. It's got like insane vegan food. It's like a great place to visit, honestly. But again, it's like, I don't have a passport. There's like, barriers there. So if you had to give like an elevator pitch on like a perfect weekend in Oklahoma around PROMCORE, what would be
Oh,
all
man.
the spots that you would hit?
Well, let's see. There's this, I mean, I know a lot of, kids that come to the fest are into skateboarding, and we have this really great place called the Gathering Place that just opened. It's a public park, but they built one of the best skate parks like I've ever seen. It's incredible, a huge sprawling area. So like, anybody that's into that, have a place to skate. The downtown like food scene in Tulsa is great. There's options for everybody. There's a spot called Chimera that's a great vegan place, also a great coffee shop. If you like Mexican food, there's a place called Tacos Don Francisco's that is like the most ridiculous Mexican food I've ever eaten in my life. It's so good.
What's your
uh,
go-to item on the menu there?
Carne asada burrito. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
That does sound very spicy and good.
yeah. It's so good. I don't know how they cook their food, but it's perfect. Yeah, I mean, it's like the time of year that we do it, like around May. It's beautiful weather here. Like, it's not too hot. You might get a little rain, but that's about it. Like, it's just a cool city. Tulsa's a rad place to be.
Yeah.
So.
So to go back to, Sonny coming in and, filming those sets for 2019 and would have been coming for 2020. Something that I noticed being on the outside of that, and spoiler alert, Sonny is actually coming on the podcast.
Oh, nice.
So we talked about kind of that triple weekend where he did Wild Rose, and then he did the Rumble in Chicago, and then he came there.
Yeah.
But I was talking to him about how I noticed that all of the PROMCORE sets came out kind of like way earlier than a lot of the other stuff. And I think either at the time or on the podcast, I'm not, my brain is doing loops, but he was just talking about a lot of the scene in Oklahoma kind of rallied together and like, okay, we're all going to get the Patreons. We're all going to vote for each other's sets. And I thought that was very cool. So can you just tell me that aspect from your perspective as well, just like the strategy there?
Yeah, I mean, whenever I announced that he was coming out, people like lost their mind because I mean, he's kind of he is who he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so people get excited. I announced him coming out like I would have announced like one of the bands playing. It was like that kind of. The reaction was great. Yeah, I mean, I just pressed it on the event page and everything. I made sure to tell all the bands. I was just like, let's everybody sign up for his Patreon, and like, even if it's just $2, and that way everybody can vote for these videos. And so I just made a point to make that part of it to where Tulsa had like a huge like hand in when those videos came out.
Sure.
Anytime he posted like a preview of one of them on Instagram or something like that, I was like, sharing that and stuff, and just reminding everybody, even after the fest was done, to, continue to like, support him and support what he's doing. So that way more eyes get on it. And then I think it becomes an easier thing for us to book bands, whenever it's time to have the fest again. So having him out was a blast. It was crazy because we do like, the thing with PROMCORE that always happened, and like, so I decided to bring it back. We brought it back because we have two stages. We do like a big stage and then like a floor stage.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and both days there's 15 bands, playing. And so, I mean, he's on stage filming and then stepping off the stage, and it's 2 minutes later filming the next band. And the dude's a machine. Like, I didn't see him eat either day that he was here. I didn't see him go to the bathroom. Like, it was crazy to watch. I offered to get him like a crew too. I was like, I can get some people to like help you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I got it under control. And he just loves doing it. And it's cool to see that he puts so much, time and effort into every band, not just the headliners, but the band that opened got the same amount of push. So.
Right. And yeah, I think that was something that I guess, I had learned from Sonny, as far as like showing up at the show and filming all of the bands, regardless of, if it's a noise band or whatever. I think that like I've been on the receiving end of that, where someone's taking photos of a band that's played after mine, and then I'm like, oh, like, did you get photos of us too, like, just out of curiosity? And they're like, oh, just this band. And so
Yeah.
that's always felt like disingenuous. So I think a true archivist is like, it's a very weird hobby to be obsessed with, because like it doesn't make sense to be like, it's not like taught to you, like a lot of people will say, watch all the bands, support all the bands, but a lot of people are like, nah, I'm not into this, I'm gonna go take a piss, or I'm gonna go do a smoke. Like, people still need to have fun, but it's a very like punishing job, especially for Sunny, where it's like no bathroom breaks or food breaks.
It was crazy. I mean, like both days of the fest afterwards, like when he finally had a moment to, decompress, you could tell he's exhausted. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. We talked about just like the adrenaline that runs through his body that kind of overpowers a lot of those human health related things.
Yeah.
So I also did want to ask you, just being a festival promoter, growing up, I saw a lot of festivals, in the mid 2010s do like the whole like, here's an application that you fill out and all this, and that's kind of like gone out the window now. So
Yeah.
I wanted, for any like up and coming band who's like maybe wants to play PROMCORE or another regional fest around the world when shows do come back, what do you think is like a good, way of presenting your band versus like, here's this super long email and all this stuff is like cringy and I don't need to know this? Talk to me about that.
I mean, I don't. I mean, I'm nobody. Like, so I don't feel like it's my place to judge like anybody's, like presentation. I like it when bands just message and they're like, hey, like, we'd be interested in playing. And I'm like, cool, like send your music and let me check it out. And if I dig it, like, then that's cool. And I mean, there's been bands that have messaged me and I thought they were awesome, but I just didn't have the space because, it is a finite amount of time. Try to accommodate like as much as possible. And I really want to have like a super diverse, like group of bands, you know what I mean? So that's another thing that I really like about how we do it, is that there's not a lot of overlap in sounds from one band to the next. Everybody kind of has something that's really unique. So I mean, I guess just being interesting and being like a unique sounding band probably helps. I mean, if you have like a good following and you want to play, like, I'm probably going to say yes, you know what I mean? And we have like 40 bands on the fest, so there's plenty of space, like for the most part. So
yeah, I think it's always a combination of like timing and luck and, checking yourself not to expect the yes. Because a lot of
yeah,
people like think, oh, we are this hype band, and then they message and then they get the no and they're like crushed because they had put such value in like, we need to play this year because X, it's going to be huge for us. Like, I think if you just put yourself out there enough, eventually someone will say yes, and then that will start the snowball effect.
Yeah, totally. And I think I've told people too that have messaged, they're like, oh, the fest looks great. Like, we'd love to play it. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, if I wish I had space, but, definitely come out and support what we're doing because
Yeah.
it's a charity event. And I think that would go a long way with me too. Like if you showed up, like, and you were in a band, maybe you weren't playing, but like you came and actually like showed support to what it is. Like I'll remember that. I mean, I have a log of everybody that has played or wants to play. So I'm constantly keeping an eye on it. And
Yeah.
I try to do a lot of like, so the in 2020, we basically had the entire Colorado hardcore scene coming out to play the fest too, which
Right.
was, and same with like with Minneapolis, I was trying to pull all the bands from those places because I was like, well, if everybody comes to play, then everybody that's there will come to the fest as well.
Right.
And so it's being from a place where there's a lot of stuff going on would probably be, helpful as well. But I mean, really, like if I think your band's cool, like I'll put you on. Like it's not, you know, I, there's no ego in any of it or anything. So
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you brought up is like if there's not space, don't just be like, "Oh, we'll shoot him a DM in 9 months to a year." Like go to the fest and shake some hands and just
yeah,
don't be like a slimy dude and try to only talk to Aaron like for the entire weekend cuz I'm sure you're running around and trying to do things. But
I
like
don't. Yeah, I don't think anybody would even know. Now that I'm on the podcast, I don't think anybody would even know who I was walking around at the show because I don't. I'm not super, you know, upfront or doing anything except like laying back and making sure everything's running smooth. So
right. Yeah. No, but I think it like I hope Devin is okay with me bringing this up, but I know that, he with Rejection Pact had messaged to play Wild Rose a couple of times, but it never, it was always, oh, there's too much room or whatever. And
yeah,
and then he was like, okay, we're just gonna go tour up and play Western Canada. And then he was actually like, hey, I'm Devin. I play in this band.
yeah,
And then they played Wild Rose just a year later. So I think that's a great way of like if there's a fest that you really want to play, just go and tour there and just play a show 6 months before, after, whatever it is.
yeah,
Make those actual relationships with people versus like, hey, I'm that band that's always DMing you and annoying you, and being
yeah.
someone that you actually want to spend time with and book.
Yeah, there was a band from Colorado called Wide Man that
Yeah.
came through. So they hit me up to play at Mass Movement, and I was like, yeah, like I'll take the show for you. And then just it was one of those weird like situations where there were no locals available. Like I couldn't find anybody to put on the show with them, like to make it a hardcore show. And so I ended up booking like a hip hop guy with them and like an alternative band. It was probably a nightmare for them, but they came out and played to the six people that showed up for the show, and they fucking killed it and they rocked. And I was like, dude, I would love to have you guys back for the fest and have you have an actual like good experience like being in Tulsa. You know what I
Sure.
mean? It was just because they were so, I mean, they're a great band, first of all, like great band. But just their attitude through that whole experience of like it was kind of a bunk show, you know what I mean? And they were just so grateful to have a place to play, even if it was for six people. And so I was like, all right, I want to bring you back out for the fest and put you on in front of a full room. So
Yeah. I think like, I'm trying to think of the themes that will be when shows do come back, and I think gratitude, I hope, is just a common theme, just like the people actually being grateful to be at a show with 50 people just being grateful that they get to hear a breakdown that they can throw down to versus like, man, this band is whatever, and arms crossed. So
and I
uh,
think I think I think when shows come back, it's gonna be crazy. Like that's just my personal like thought on it, at least. Especially like a place around here. I think shows are so important to like a small city and kind of scene like we have. Because everybody gets busy with life, but you get that one day, out of the week where you get to be around your friends and stuff and just kind of let loose. And I think everybody's really missing that. So
yeah, everyone's been stuck at home, so like even when that is, it's okay to go out and people got, vaccines flowing through their veins or whatever, they're going to be like, I've been at home for like a year and a half, like I want to go to the hardcore show and just see my friends and just see some live music. I'm in withdrawal of that. I remember when Laramie came on, it was just we were talking about that in length. So I feel like that's a great transition into mass movements.
Yeah.
So just as of late, kind of through this quarantine, you've been doing a lot of like pre-recorded live streams with
Yeah.
a number of bands from Oklahoma, but also in the surrounding states as well. So give me context about like was that just an idea that was in the back of your head even when shows were a thing, or was it like out of like being feeling the pressure of like we have to do something and that
Yeah.
came to life?
Yeah, a little both. I mean, I've always filmed shows in Tulsa. Just even back like way back in the day, I had like a little high 8 camcorder. I just used to film all the shows.
Okay.
And so whenever COVID happened, I don't know, I think we all thought that it was probably just gonna, you know, kind of blow over pretty quickly. And so when we shut down the venue in March because of COVID, we did like a donation-based fundraiser thing where people could just, donate to help keep the venue open. And I was like, for every $100 that we raise, I'll throw a free show. And we raised like way more money than I thought. And so I was like, oh shit, now now I'm gonna have to do these free shows like the next like 2 years. But
How much money did you raise?
God, I want to say that, I mean, the scene kicked in probably like $3,500,
Wow.
so yeah, I mean, it was a substantial amount, which, I mean, it allowed us to pay rent basically for 4 months on the space. And, but then it just kept going and going. And I was like, do we ask again? And my partners and we were like, it seems kind of annoying to like ask for another like help, you know what I mean? And
Right.
so I was like, well, what if we started doing live streams? And then we were like, yeah, that could be cool. Like we got bands. But then we tried to get internet in the space, and it was like $200 a month for internet fast enough to be able to. And I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense because
Right.
we're already bleeding money. So yeah, we just decided to start doing these pre-recorded sets. And so luckily I have like camera equipment and have a general knowledge of how to, edit. And Jacob, our other owner, he's an engineer, like audio engineer. That's what he does. And so he is able to record and mix and master the sets, and they sound incredible. And so, yeah, we just started pumping them out. Like I booked like as many bands as I could for like 2 months straight, and just hammering out sets like every weekend until we got kind of a good catalog put together. Yeah. And so we've just been putting them out bi-weekly. And they're usually anywhere from $5 to $8 for the stream. And you can just, we didn't set up a website because a paywall we thought it'd probably end up costing money. Yeah. So we just basically have people Cashapp or Venmo or PayPal us the money, and they just attach their email address to it. And I just send them the set, and they get it for 48 hours, and then it goes away. And then we'll end up we'll give the bands the video file like a month after the set, so they can do whatever they want with it. So
yeah, I think I knew that those sets expired after that 48 hours, but then when I was prepping for the podcast, I was like, oh, Fist of Fury set is on YouTube, and then I was watching that. So that makes sense that, obviously the band has, especially you've had some bands from Texas and some other states, so it's like, yeah, you want to have something for them to, it's not like, all right, thanks, and then giving that back to them is important too. Sure.
Yeah, well, and our plan is we split the money. So whatever we bring in, we offer, we're like, hey, we'll split it 50-50 between the venue and the band. And the majority of the bands are like, it's fine, just, keep the venue open. So, which is really cool. So
yeah, because it's not just for Oklahoma; it's for the places, for the bands that want to go there and play those shows there too.
Yeah, because I mean, it's the only like small all ages venue in Tulsa. Like the Vanguard where we have PROMCORE is, an all ages spot, but it's like they've kind of started really reserving it for big shows. You know what I mean? Like even before COVID, they were starting to kind of phase. They used to do floor shows, but they were phasing that out a bit to where they were really only having stuff that could happen on the stage. And so it's like a 600 cap room, and so they got to have a pretty good amount of people for it to make sense. So for us, we can have shows in our space because it's probably 100 cap, and if 25 people are there, it still feels pretty nice. So.
Yeah, nothing is worse than going to a show that is for this many people and this many people. Show
Yeah.
up. Yeah, I've been in those situations where it's like, okay, I see people all the way in the back and then one dude at the front versus like you're in a tight space and you, even if you're standing in
Yeah.
the back of the room, you're still like,
Yeah.
6 feet apart or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, is there any, live streams that are coming up?
There's one that launched today, a band called Direct Measure from St. Louis, Missouri. Really awesome hardcore band. So it's up now. The next one is a band called Mangala from Texas. They're from a couple different cities in Texas, like a metalcore band. Really cool. And then so that one will be like February, maybe 5th, actually, I think is the release
Okay.
for that. And then the one after that is a band called Mind's Eye from Colorado.
Hell yeah. Love that band, honestly.
That cool band. And then I play guitar in a band called Tell Lies, and we recorded one. It'll be the one after that. And then that's about it right now. I'm just kind of waiting on the baby to get here, and then I'll, start filming again. But I mean, like, it's one of those situations too, where like, if you follow PROMCORE and you shoot us a message and you're like, hey, I didn't get a chance to see the Fist of Fury set or whatever, like, I'll work something out. Like, it's not like, it, if people want to see the stuff, like, we'll figure out a way for them to get the watch.
It's not deleted off the hard drive. Like,
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about some of the past ones for the people listening who are like, oh, I do actually would love to see a set of that band?
Yeah. So we filmed, you're wearing their shirt. We filmed the Omen record release set. That was the first one that we did. It was fucking great. That new record of theirs is so heavy.
Oh, insane. Yeah.
More
people need to listen to that band if you're into that like heavy metallic hardcore stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, they're so good. It's so cool that they're from here. So we did them. We did like a punk band from Dallas called the Kinky Bastards. Just like kind of a really cool, like, I don't even know how to describe them. They're definitely a punk band, but they kind of have some weird like honky tonk stuff that they do.
Okay.
It's a very fun visual experience with them. Ballista from Texas, who was going to play Wild Rose Fest, like, they had a set that we did. Fist of Fury and One in the Chamber. Those two bands share some members, and they're from Texas as well. So their sets were really great. So these are all ones that are available. There's a band from here in Oklahoma City called The Tooth. I think I sent you that link.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
They are one of the best bands of heavy music doing it. And it's not like
the audio from that set, I was like blown away. Like, because it's always like hearing a set like of, that's been in the studio, but then hearing that same song in a live setting that's been professionally done for like one of Sonny's This Is Hardcore videos or LDB Fest, I'm just like blown away. So shout out to The Tooth.
Our guy Jacob, who mixes and masters this stuff, he knows what he's doing. He makes them sound so good. So so there's those, and then we got the ones coming up. So I mean, if you're interested in checking them out, just shoot us a message and we'll figure out a way to make it happen.
So maybe just to kind of finish off that point, like there's been a number of people doing live streams. Sonny is doing a number of those, and those are full on live. And I know that he did a poll where he was like, do you care if a set is full on live or if it's like pre-recorded and there's like a chat that's premiered and things like that? And it was like a 50-50 split. So like largely people don't really care. They're just happy that there's some, form of hardcore content, especially for bands that put out new music. You want to see, how they do those songs live in anticipation to see them full on live. So talk to me just like how much, $5 here, $7 here actually goes towards that, because a lot of people get in their mind of like, oh, like it's, how little my little contribution can actually make change for that.
Yeah. I mean, all the money from these streams are just going to keep the venue open. Because I think it's an important part of what we have going on here. It not only for Tulsa, like you said, but for bands from all over that have a place to come through. You know what I mean? Like if you're going from, East Coast to West Coast, like you got to get there somehow. And so if there's not a spot to play, like it kind of disrupts the whole, blood flow of the way that, touring works. So yeah, I mean, all the money goes to that. I mean, every little bit helps. We're trying to provide something, so we're not just asking for money. We're actually, providing something that's worth taking a look at. And even if you're not into the bands and you just want to help like a DIY spot, like it's still, $5 is like a good contribution to have for that. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a super important thing that we're trying to keep alive here. We don't want to see the venue go under. It's, yeah.
Yeah, I'm there's multiple moments and conversations on this podcast where I think about listening to it in 6 months time, a year's time, and I really encourage anyone listening or watching to go and support the Mass Movements, PROMCORE, all those endeavors, because I hope that when shows do come back, we can look back on this conversation and be like really happy that things came to a better conclusion than a worse one. Because like you said, like if it's the last line in the chain as far as like going from east to west or west to east, no one says west to east. I just realized saying that. I was like, that sounds so weird. But yeah, as soon as that chain breaks, then there's a huge gap as far as like a lot of spots in Canada don't get toured because like a lot of people will think a reputation of a city as far as a chain, it's not worth it. So you need to build up reputation and have those just options for people who are booking these shows. So it's crucial. It's crucial. So Aaron, we can kind of start to wrap up the podcast here. This has been a really good chat with everything that you're doing. I've been able to see PROMCORE kind of from afar, and a realization that I've had through this whole time is like, even if there's certain fests that I'm not filming, I need to just go more and just hang out with more people, especially just now, just having the withdrawal of it. So PROMCORE is definitely one of those that I want to hit up when it's safe to do so.
And I think we'd love to have you guys come out and film too. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no, I don't know. Like like I said, there's plenty of bands that play. So maybe, and it all just kind of depends on who's available to do stuff. You know what I mean? I just want to kind of build those relationships and get as much exposure to people as possible. So.
Yeah. But like I was trying to say, the last section of the podcast that I always ask every guest is a favorite mosh story that they would like to share. I don't know if you've been prepping for this, but I'm sure with the amount of shenanigans that goes down in PROMCORE, I'm sure you have a couple. So if you want to share more than one, you are more than welcome to.
Yeah, so I was thinking about it. I've never really been much of a mosher. Like, I don't know. I just have like, I don't like getting smacked around. Like, it's not something that I find to be fun. I like to watch it, but so there's like a legendary show in like Tulsa hardcore like history where Bane and Comeback Kid and who else? With Honor, we're all doing a tour like 2005, 6, something like that, and they. My buddy Ryan booked it, and it was at this big venue, probably like a 600 cap venue, because back at the time it was like, that's the amount of people that were coming out to these big shows. And so we have the show and all the locals that are on it play. And it was one of those things where you got like 4 local bands, it was just like one of those shows where there were so many bands. But so the local bands play and the kids are getting rowdy. There's a bunch of people from out of state. And something happens during one of the local band sets, and the security at the venue that we're having it at, they get aggravated, and they end up like macing people there, and they shut the show down. And and it was before any of the touring bands played, and so we were like, "Fuck, this sucks!" Like, and so, but we had this place in Tulsa called the Pink Eye, and it was just the shittiest, like 150 cap, all ages venue that the bands we all used to practice there. I mean, it's called the Pink Eye, and you probably could have caught pink eye from being, it was fucking disgusting. And so, but we called the owner, Matt, and we were like, "Hey, the show got shut down. Can we move it over there?" And he was like, "Hell yeah, that sounds awesome." And so, but he wasn't a hardcore kid. Like, he didn't really understand like the size of the show.
I see.
And
okay.
So we told like all 500 people, "Okay, go to the Pink Eye, and whoever gets there first can come inside." And so they all 500 people show up to this like 150 cap space, and everybody went in.
Right.
And it was just bonkers. Like, you couldn't hardly move. There were so many people. And so there was a band that was on the tour called X Looking Forward X. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they were like a straight edge band from Baltimore. And they were on.
Sorry, did you say a vegan straight edge band?
No, just a
Oh,
just a
just
straight
straight
edge.
edge. No V,
Yeah.
just X's.
Oh,
Okay.
I don't. They might have been vegan. I don't know. But anyway, they were label mates with a band that I was in at the time, and so we had played with them a few times.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I'm so stoked to see my friends. And so, like I said, I don't mosh, but they're my homies. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna get out there. And so I'm like standing in the back and watching them. They're playing this one song called All Aces that I just love. And I'm like running around singing along, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna mosh. And I like go to mosh, and this dude from out of town, I've never seen this kid before in my life, just comes across, and he's doing one of these things, and he just smokes me in the face so hard that like I saw stars and I dropped, and he like stood over me and he was like, "What's up, bitch?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. I'm not here for any of this." And so that was the last time that I've moshed. So it put me in the mosh retirement. It was just that one incident of getting smacked. It was enough for me.
Yeah, I'm not into him just being like, "Yo, what's up?" It's like, dude, you
It was
hit me.
it was really weird. I think that there was a lot of that back in that time too, of like just tough guy bullshit. But yeah, I can actually, I'll send you the link to that show because I filmed it.
Perfect.
I filmed it on that high 8 camera. So yeah, it was Bane and Comeback Kid in this teeny tiny little room, and it's stupid. Like it was so dangerous. Like we could have died. So.
Yeah. I personally love, with the age of social distancing, I think at the beginning it was like anytime you would watch a TV show and people are like gathered together, you're just getting triggered of like, you're not doing that. But like I am itching, once it's safe to do so, just to be in a room that's like overcrowded and just people going crazy. And I also love mosh stories with video sets to back it up. So that's very, very cool. I'm very excited to see that. Well, Aaron, this has been a blast. Is there any final plugs, places you want to send people to the website?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Nope.
Yeah, just if you're interested in checking out the live streams, you can just follow PROMCORE on Instagram or PROMCORE on Twitter. That's where we post most of the stuff, and you'll be able to kind of get access through there, see the flyers that we're putting up for the bands. And so anything that you can contribute to help, or just want to see some cool sets, like this that would be the way to do it.
Yeah. And all the information will be in the show notes below, description of the video. Aaron, it's been a great chat, like I've said, and I'm always for trying to give a little bit of exposure and highlight to places around the country that don't have that like hardcore clout, as corny as that sounds. So, you're doing great things. Keep it up. And thanks for coming on the podcast. This has been really fun.